So now it is truly a travesty that we didn't have a Democratic debate between Super Tuesday and the March 10th primaries. Now the next debate is scheduled for the 15th. It's on a Sunday, and so that's probably on purpose as well, by the way. But anyways, so what's going on here is I actually had reported to you a story about how the DNC, the Joe Biden campaign, was lobbying to the DNC and CNN to have a seated debate and to have a town hall style so that there's not much confrontation between Bernie and Biden, direct confrontation like there has been in the previous debates. So they wanted to do it just where it's speaking to voters because they're aware of his cognitive decline and they don't want Bernie to expose him for it. And so that's why it's terrible that there hasn't been a debate. And a 1v1 debate can change the entire game. Now, it has not been changed to a town hall format yet. One change that has happened is basically there will be no people in the crowd because of coronavirus fears. Now, you guys know Jim Clyburn. He's basically pretty bigly responsible for Joe Biden's situation right now. His endorsement meant a lot to people in South Carolina. That South Carolina win basically rolled into a mainstream media cabal of $100 million of free advertising for Joe Biden. All right, because they were nonstop praising him and fawning over him. So he's a very powerful guy. He's the majority whip, guys, in the House. He's a very powerful guy. Also a big sellout, by the way. And this is when Cornel West talks about how black leadership is sold out. He's talking about James Clyburn. James Clyburn has taken $1 million from Big Pharma over the past decade. Way more than any of his peers in Congress. All right? So he is a total and complete sellout. All right? Literally, fully. So he's actually going to say, that the DNC should cancel all of the debates.
I think we will be at a point where Joe Biden will be the prohibitive nominee of the party, and I think the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, should then step in, make an assessment, and determine whether or not they ought to have any more debates. I think we will be...
So basically what's going on here is, and again, let me repeat to you guys, Jim Clyburn is very, very powerful guy. He's a lot of say in the Democratic Party, the Democratic establishment, and so him saying this means a lot, dude. Seriously, and they owe him bigly because he basically saved the sinking Joe Biden campaign. So basically what he's saying is we should just stop the primaries because, let's just end them, forget elections, let's not finish out the election, even though Joe Biden only has like a 150 delegate lead and Bernie Sanders could totally come back. This shows they know about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. They don't want Bernie Sanders to go up to expose him because then that increases the odds of Bernie Sanders emerging victorious from this race. So they sure as hell don't want that. But also they're worried about, same thing happened in 2016. They're worried about that happening. They still pull out the win, but then it's used against them when they go against Donald Trump. And my response to that is if you're worried about the latter, what you should be doing is, in the latter scenario, you should be nominating Bernie Sanders, the guy who doesn't have dementia. So the same thing happened in 2016. Hillary supporters found, and Hillary herself, they found a way to blame literally everyone for their loss but themselves. I've literally heard Hillary supporters blame Donald Trump for her loss. Like, dude, you're literally running against Donald Trump. He's your opponent. He's trying to win the election. Obviously, he's going to be a reason why you lose. You're incredibly stupid if you do that. But what did they say? They said, oh, Bernie Sanders really damaged Hillary Clinton because he called her corrupt, and that really paved the way for Donald Trump to do it. You know why? Because Hillary Clinton was corrupt, all right? And the same way that she was corrupt and then Donald Trump was able to hammer that because he was right, Joe Biden has dementia. He has cognitive decline. He cannot form coherent sentences. He cannot form, well thought out, thoughts. He just can't do it. Literally, he called an AR-15 an AR-14 today, for Pete's sake, yesterday. So, this is just not a good look. And so what happened? Hillary went on to lose. This is the same thing. And so my response to you is, if you're in that scenario, you should go with the guy who doesn't have dementia. You should go with the guy who's not a sellout to Wall Street, because then that person can't have that weaponized against them because they're not affected by it. So if you're worried about Joe Biden losing in the general because of his cognitive decline, well, shoot, go with Bernie Sanders. You know why? Because he doesn't have cognitive decline. So this is serious because The election is not even close to over. Joe Biden's got like a 150 delegate lead. California's not fully counted. Utah, Colorado not fully counted. So we don't have the full numbers in yet either. But there's a ton of delegates to go still. And there's, most importantly, a debate coming up on the 15th. Now, there should have been a debate post-Super Tuesday between Super Tuesday and yesterday. All right, should have been Thursday, Friday would have been the right time to do it. But they didn't want to do that, obviously, for obvious reasons. They didn't want to give Bernie Sanders a chance to basically expose Joe Biden, right? So this is pretty worrisome. Hopefully this doesn't happen. We can't let this happen. But Jim Clyburn is a big sellout. So again, let me repeat, man. Black leadership has sold out. Whether it's Kamala Harris, corporate sellout. Cory Booker, corporate sellout. Notorious corporate sellout, by the way. He voted against that amendment to allow Canadian drugs to be, prescription drugs to be imported because he gets tons of money from big pharma and pharmaceutical industry, from the pharmaceutical industry. So if you look at any of these like black leaders, Obama, bankrolled by Wall Street. Nobody took more money in that election than him from Wall Street, even more than Hillary Clinton. Imagine beating Hillary Clinton at taking more money from Wall Street. Imagine being that terrible. So these are all sellouts. All these black leaders are sellouts. Black folks look to their leaders because historically they've been extremely oppressed, and so they had to look to their leaders for congregation and help, and so they continue to do that as a tradition, but their leadership is sold out. It went from Malcolm X, MLK, Fred Hampton. It went from them and the Black Panthers to now you have Jim Clyburn, Obama, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, John Lewis, who's definitely a hero for his civil rights stuff, but he literally made a backroom deal with the establishment in 2016. MLK was rolling in his grave hearing about that, dude. Seriously, could you imagine MLK ever, the guy who literally died because he was assassinated because he was marching against the Vietnam War. He had his Poor People's Campaign. He said capitalism, imperialism, and racism all are the same evil all in one, and we need to understand that. That's why he was killed. These guys don't believe in any of that. So I feel bad for MLK and the previous black leadership because they were so legit, and these guys are frauds. And so that's why we have the African-American voting bloc voting the way that they are right now. But Jim Clyburn, just total sellout, and this is a pretty scary thing, to be honest.